समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
So this is the era of war. The Middle East is up in flames again. Israel has launched Operation Rising Sun against Iran to try and prevent it from achieving a nuclear bomb. Iran has retaliated, and there has been a barrage of missiles from both sides. And it's a fast evolving situation. And to unpack that with me, I have two guests. Very happy to be joined again by Kabir. Kabir Taneja, as you know, is one of India's foremost experts on the Middle East, as well as a deputy director at the ORF. And I'm very pleased to be joined by Professor Ehud Manor from Haifa in Israel, who is trained as a historian but obviously has a very keen geopolitical eye. So, very pleased to welcome the two of you to Worldview with Swasti. And let's just start, with the basics. First of all, Udi, tell me, what is the situation like in Israel? We heard about, these missiles getting into Tel Aviv and explosions, and the footage that is emerging is quite something. So first, just tell us, what is the ground situation like in Israel?
Okay, so right now it's a kind of tension, a quiet tension, because there are a few hours now since the morning. I'm talking Israeli terms. The last time that I had to go to my security room right here in my apartment was about 10 hours ago. And since then, there's no missile attack, but we know for sure that it's going to go on. And just to make India is quite a big place. It's an understatement. So Tel Aviv is one city which is the most important, because the army headquarters around there. But Haifa, which is about 100 kilometers to the north, is also targeted, and also other parts of the land. So when people talking about Tel Aviv, it's like a generalization. You should take in mind that it's not only Tel Aviv, even though obviously it's the easiest, because the airport and the headquarters. So summing up, right now things are quiet, but no one has any doubt that this quiet is temporary. So we're going to, the officials already said yesterday, when the whole thing started, that they're looking forward to at least 2 weeks of ongoing war of this sort. So they ask people to stay alert and to stay ready to go into security rooms if they have in their homes, or to shelters, or subway stations, whatever. So this is the only way to really be more or less secure, even though 3 people already died and dozens are injured.
Oh yes, I mean that. Thanks for letting us know. I mean what the ground situation out there is like. And Kabir, now let's just get into some more fundamentals. The timing is very very uncanny here. Which is that, I mean, on the one hand, one could expect that yes, with Donald Trump's penchant for going into quick deals, I think Israel probably felt that it had no other way but to step in and take matters in its own hands. But on the other hand, there was also this, this fear of getting this conflict spiral over into the bigger region, getting other powers sucked in. So let's just start from the timing itself. What do you think that the timing makes it so crucial? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's very interesting because the American factor is in a rarity, a gray zone here, right? We are not very sure what the American factor, how it played out, and that's critical for Israel, right? For example, a lot of people, or at least some reportage is saying that Israel went ahead with this without America or informing the Americans. I find that very hard to believe. But if you see some of the at least the not statements, but some of the points that have come out of Israel is, for example, that no, we CENTCOM was very much on board on what we were doing. They were aware, and so on and so forth. So if CENTCOM is aware, the Americans are aware. It's quite simple. But I think a lot of the anxieties for the Israelis to take this step, and let's not diminish the fact that this is a massive step to take. I think the anxieties that really pushed Israel here were not that Donald Trump was or maybe close to signing some sort of deal with with Iran. But I think the anxiety was that even the Israelis could not read what Donald Trump wanted to do. If you see Donald Trump's own statements, he wants to sign something with Iran, sometimes really really pandering towards the Iranian interests as well, so that they come to the table and sign something, while simultaneously saying, we will militarily mobilize and we will drop bombs on Iran if they don't cooperate and agree. So it I think it left a country like Israel that really really depends on American policy stability to begin with, and only after that military backing, to not knowing what's going to happen, because it's fully possible that if the Iranians manage to play the game properly, they will sign something with Trump. He's that kind of personality, where personality first, policy second. So and he would have wanted that victory. So I think the gray area part of the US itself may have actually pushed Prime Minister Netanyahu, who has been consistent, let's be honest about this eventuality from the Israeli perspective at least, to take maybe a step that not many were expecting would be taken right now.
Absolutely. Can I add about it? Because
yes, of course.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So Netanyahu was very reluctant. He was even harshly criticized by those Israelis like me. I must confess, I don't want to, I want to be honest with, I have my opinion, of course. On the one hand, I'm a historian. I'm supposed to be non-biased. I'm trying to do my best to be, but on the other hand, as an Israeli citizen, as a Jewish, as a Zionist, I have my vision about our enemies, and our enemies talk business, So some people are saying, "No, come on, it's not. It's only talk. They only talk. They don't do the work." It's like a nice American phrase, because after in the end of the day, everyone is rational. Hitler was rational, and Churchill was rational, and Stalin was rational, and everyone is rational. Now the Pakistan government is rational. Everyone is rational. So don't take them serious. Okay, I tend to respect my enemies. I really do respect my enemies, also my allies, of course, obviously. But I tend to respect my enemies, and in the Iran case, there's no question that for me, and for many other Israelis, that there's no question that they are committed to the destruction of the state of Israel. Whether they can do it and how, this is another question. But in terms of the intention, so let's go back to Netanyahu. Netanyahu was harshly criticized until October 7th, 2023, because being too reluctant and too pragmatic and too rational in terms of let's supply money to the Hamas, because it's not, again, it's the talk and the walk. It's like, now the issue of Iran. Let me put it in a perspective. Already in 1993, I'm talking more than 30 years now, Prime Minister Rabin, which after was assassinated, he became sort of a saint, so he's not non-criticable. I'm mentioning this fact because Netanyahu is very critical with due. I never voted for him. It's not I'm not trying to defend my political. My partisan view, because I'm not part of his party. I'm talking about a position as an Israel. So Rabin already in 1993 was talking about the Iranian threat. He was comparing the strategy of Iran regime to spread terror all over the world, which they do in Venezuela, in Argentina, in Pakistan, all over the place. The Houthis in Syria, in Lebanon, in Gaza Strip, in the West Bank, you name it, they are there. So Rabin, which is undoubted is respected by all Israeli citizens because he was assassinated, it kind of, forgive me my cynicism, but this is life. I mean, when someone dies, all of a sudden he becomes a saint. So Saint Rabin already 32 years ago was talking about the Iranian threat. So going back to Netanyahu's decision yesterday, or the Israel government decision yesterday, to go on to this fight, no one knows how it's going to end. No one knows if the goal, to eliminate Iran nuclear program will be achieved, because it's a big question. And now, one last thing. Many people all over the world have this notion. This also in Israel, I must admit, also in Israel, many Israelis think that the U.S. and Israel are like, like twin brothers, big brother and small brother, or twins, or whatever you want to put. No, not at all. Always, on the one hand, there was also always affinity. Not always, but from 1965, there was affinity, strategic affinity. On the other hand, all the time there were quarrels and fights and disagreements, and different ways of seeing things strategically in the intelligence and politically, etc. So Trump is it's a big question because of his personality. But if you put it in the context of the long history of Israeli-U.S. Relations, there's no way to say that they are combined, or 100% on the same page. Not at all.
Okay. All right, Odi. That was quite a constructive, assessment of. Yeah, that was quite a constructive assessment of how we tend to sometimes look at things in a more monolithic fashion, because we are obviously situated away from that theater. But let's just come back to this particular issue, which is the elephant in the room. I mean, Kabir, isn't it the fact that from 2015, when the JCPOA was signed during Obama administration, of course, and then Trump came, and then obviously his style of politics is very, very personal. So he doesn't agree with anything that his predecessors have done. And back then, now we see that he's blaming Biden for everything, and back then he was blaming Obama for everything, and that's the reason he 2018 he just pulled out. And then even then, people that are close were in a circle actually advised him not to do so, but he did. But in the years that have followed, I mean, Iran has pretty much now is very close to achieving, right, the weapon grade, which is 90% of enrichment. They're already at 60% now. And the IAEA report, showed it very clearly. Now, the question that emerges now is that with whatever is happening, of course, we are going to come back to the weapons, etc. But with whatever is happening, is it going to accelerate the pace within Iran to now get a bomb without any more delays, or is it really going to tell Iran to just stop pursuing it? I believe it's probably going to accelerate, but then you are the expert on the region.
Look, I think it will also. I mean, it's a very active theater right now. We have to remember that. So, but we'll have to wait and see what kind of damage has actually been done to the nuclear facilities inside Iran, which we are not really aware of. I think we'll have to wait and see sort of what kind of setbacks Iran has taken, whether they are significant. There's some of their facilities are deep under mountains, so we are not particularly sure how effective the strikes have been. The strikes could very well have been just on the surface, destroying infrastructure, but not really getting into the core of what the facilities are. So I think we'll have to take a half a step back and wait for more information to filter in. But having said that, the from a strategic point of view, I think we have to see it slightly. I mean, we can afford to see it probably sitting in Delhi slightly dispassionately, to the point that, look, Israel has been very clear about the idea of nuclearization in the region that threatens its security for a long period of time. It has taken out in facilities in Syria. It has taken out facilities in Iraq earlier. So if you see it from that perspective of how it views nuclear proliferation in the region, it's consistent. The only problem here, of course, for Israel was that Iran is a much bigger power in the region than Syria was at that point of time, and Iraq probably has ever been. So and let's be honest here. I think there's this. Iran is not a small country. Iran is a fairly large country, fairly large player in the region. It is all said and done not going to be a walkover in any shape or form. But there have been some very interesting indications. I'm very surprised that Iran's air defense literally did not switch on during the period of the Israeli airstrikes. The Israeli airstrikes were not were not led by drones or anything of that sort. It was conventional warfare. In an era where we discuss gray areas warfare more than conventional, it was conventional warfare. It was manned flight that went deep into Iran, conducted the attacks, and came back. The fact that the Iranians did not have an answer to that is a very perplexing situation to be in, and it's something that that is seen. That will be seen, at least from the Iranian point of view, as a slap in the face of the Iranian military. That usually tends to not go down well with states like Iran, right? Who consider themselves as civilizational states, as civilizational powers. This does not go down well. So when people or assessments, believe that, oh, this may be a skirmish or something like that, that is going to be 5 days, 6 days, 8 days, or something. I think it's going to be much more ingrained, unfortunately, going forward. And I think the next we will have to see what kind of response Iran comes out with, and they will come out with something.
But before I come to Udi, just to sort of build on that, Kabir, because not many people know that the nuclear enrichment facilities in Iran are actually spread out across the city. I mean, across the length and breadth of their country. So many people would know Natanz, for example, but then could you just also run us through the more important sites, the sites that have been damaged this time, and the ones that are, shrouded in the safety of mountains, just to
No,
give
no,
us a
look, it's been an extensive strike package from Israel. They've tried targeting Natanz, they've tried to target
Natanz.
Fordow, and a bunch of, in Termez also they've tried to target nuclear facilities. So they've tried to target, I think, each and every critical site, which is believed to be involved in making of nuclear weapons. So or at least enrichment of uranium to move towards nuclear weapons. In that way, but we have seen that it should not be surprising as well, because it's a shadow war coming out into the spotlight right now. The war is being fought for decades. It's not new. From, if you see the Israeli capacities that they've built inside Iran, is quite something, because they've taken out Hamas leadership in central Tehran earlier. It's a culmination of years and years of volatility between the two countries. And as I said before, I think we'll have to now see what kind of response Iran comes up with, and they will come up with something.
Yeah. No, Udi, yes, I'm very sorry,
Yeah,
but then please, you
um,
want to add to something, to what
yeah,
Kabir
yes,
was
of course. I want to add and to make some things, to put them more accurate. The issue of the air defense of Iran, it wasn't a coincidence. It was, the previous round, few months ago. Exactly, this was the aim of the Israeli Air Force, to destroy this air defense system. So it was part of, as you said, as you said it very well. It's a part of, culmination. There are many chapters. Now it's out, with flames and smoke and lots of drama and Trump, etc. But the war is actually going. I mentioned before Rabin 1993. So one can assume that since the mid 1990s, more or less 30 years, there is like undercover sort of war, which came out to light after the atrocities of October 7, 2023. And from this point, I just want and another thing, which is more, on the tactic level, Israel is using drones even more so. Israeli forces managed to infiltrate, so to speak, drones into the Iranian territory yesterday. I mean, they did it before. I'm not an expert on this subject. I'm not part of the secrets, and if I had known the secrets, I wouldn't tell them here. But obviously, I'm talking about things that came out public on the news. So Israel is using a mixture of tactics, not only the typical Air Force manned airplanes, and also drones, and of course we have satellites up there in the sky. So we have many tools to fight. But let me put, now I want to get to the most important thing for me as an Israeli and as a historian, both as an Israeli, as an historian. The issue is not the nuclear capability of Iran, because I could go right now to the issue of how a country say India or Pakistan or North Korea or Britain back in the days, or the US or the USSR, how do you pronounce yourself as a nuclear power? Okay, so it's not only the enrichment of the uranium, you also have to have the missiles, and they have to be accurate missiles, and you have to have the device that makes the nuclear reaction, etc., etc. And there's a big question if Iran is there, but this is not the point. The point that is Iran is using the possibility, the nuclear option, or even talking about the nuclear option as an umbrella for the real thing. And the real thing is the intervention all over the Middle East, or what you call in India, the West Asia, all over West Asia, Iran, and also South Africa. South Africa, what has South Africa have to do with the Middle East? Now, South Africa applied to the Hague Supreme Court, not Supreme Court, I don't know, the court, International Court in Hague. Yes, South Africa. How? They were corrupt. They were bribed by the Iranian government. So the Iranian government, this regime is using all of its capabilities, intelligence, propaganda, proxies, drugs, you name it, you name it. I mean, there are thousands of soldiers of Iran in Venezuela. Now look at the map. Where is Venezuela? Is 2 meters from the Panama Canal. So I'm not. I don't have to talk about India's interest. I had already some talks with other Indian experts on the subject, and I understood quite well that for them, a strong and stable Iran is crucial to the stability of the relative stability in the border between Pakistan and India. So we are in a contradiction of terms. I want, as an Israeli, the Iranian regime to collapse, and you, as an Indian, want want Iran regime to be strong. And I want, as an Israeli, to have a stronger relation with India and with Quad and with Australia and with Japan and with South Korea, etc. So this world we're living in is so contradictory that we tend to to miss the main point. And the main point is very simple. The main point is so simple. You have a state, a country, an official country member of the UN, and I know that in India, this organization that in Israel is very low perceived, with reason. In India is very well perceived, and I think India should be in the security, one of the five members of the Security Council of the UN. So you have here a country in the UN outspeaking for decades now that it wants the elimination of another UN member of which is Israel. So this is the problem, and they still selling oil all over the world. Okay, and they still have interchange ambassadors all over the world that participate in the Olympics, and they participate in the World Cup of tennis, whatever you name it. Like everything is fine, because now look at the hypocrite Europeans. Whenever there is a tension in the region, they ask Israel to restrain. Never say anything about a country that its regime is outspeaking officially on record. We want to eliminate Israel, which is a UN member. So this is the problem. Okay, so the nuclear question is of course one tool, but the main issue is very, very simple.
Okay, Odi, but I mean, I would have come to the international response anyway. But I think, as far as I understand, it's like whether it's France or Germany or UK. I think they have this time come out in unequivocal support for Israel, and in fact, so much so that Iran had to actually issue a warning saying that if UK decides to step, or whoever decides to step into this war, supporting Israel, their assets and their interests would be targeted directly, etc. But I'm going to come to that. But before that, but before that, Kabir, let me just come to you and let's just start understanding what is the impact of these attacks. So from Israel side, when the Operation Rising Lion was launched, they took out the top military leadership of the IRGC, right? And then Iran was very quick to then fill those ranks. But
Yeah,
then help
obviously.
us understand. Yeah, but I mean, I'll first come to Kabir, and then of course I'm going to go to you for for that. But Kabir, just help me understand. So who are the people that are eliminated? Of course, we keep hearing the most important names, but also what is it that we are probably not able to see that you as an expert can also help us understand better?
No, I mean, look, they've clearly sort of wiped out the top half of the IRGC, for example, the Iranian army, and so on and so forth. So they've suffered very significant losses, and it's not just about suffering losses. It's just about the fact that the Israelis knew where they're sleeping, where they're eating, where they're walking, to the point where they could target them when they needed to target them, and that shows you that this is a decades long issue between the two countries, because this kind of intelligence is not cultivated over 6 days. For example, like we've been hearing, at least in the Israeli press, that the plan to attack finally was sort of mobilized 6 7 days ago. But the mobilization of the intelligence that is required for success is decades old. So that's for. But personally quite perplexed with Iranian responses anyway. Not necessarily after what has happened over the past 72 hours, but even if you go back to the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, that was done by the Americans, just to clarify. Iran is in this cyclical thing that, oh yes, these people were killed, they were the top ranking leaders of our agencies, and here are the new people now. It's I find it a little strange, because they seem to be lacking blueprints on how they're supposed to respond beyond a point. Yes, there are significant capacity issues that the Iranians have. They technically don't really have a functioning air force, for example, so they rely heavily on long range missiles that they have created using technologies that are from the 70s and the 80s. So not even necessarily it's the latest technology that is being mobilized. The biggest blow for them, to their strategic advantage that they perceive to have over Israel for a long period of time, is the disintegration of the axis of resistance. So, for example, if you see even the Hezbollah's statement, or well, not directly attributed to them, but some of the opinions coming out of the Hezbollah camp seem to be very, very careful that they really don't want to bear the brunt of this again, or as Hezbollah, right? So considering the kind of losses they have suffered, considering the losses Hamas has suffered, and considering even the losses, something like the Houthis have suffered, there has been a significant step back in for Iranian proxy groups that were designed to be the first line of defense for Iran. That is right. So now that is not there, I think there is a lack of plan B or plan C within the Iranian leadership on what to do. We have to remember Israel and Iran don't share any borders. There's a lot of distance between the two countries. So when you're conducting an attack, let's say from an Iranian point of view, and not utilizing the top of the line equipment, that technology wise that is available today to Western powers, for example, you give plenty of time to radars, to countermeasures to kick in, and they can see what is coming in their way, and they can take down the projectiles, as we have seen number of Shahid drones that Iran launched towards Israel. Those drones are actually very slow moving drones, they're not even fast moving drones. So it's not technically very hard for Israeli systems to take them down. So there is that capacity issue, I think, that Iran is really, really grappling with, on when it comes to developing countermeasures to Israel. So at the best, for example, now they have said that it's a declaration of war against Iran. So now, how Iran has worked previously is that they will try to target Israeli interests, not necessarily in Israel, but anywhere else, as they did after the killing of the first Hezbollah leader in the 90s. We had Argentina happen after that, and so on and so forth. So they have those kind of textbook maneuvers still in play, I would believe. So as I said, it unfortunately could just be the beginning of a long driven conflict.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember, and I mean, I share this opinion that this is like a war of attrition, and I wonder if Israel is ready for whatever is now going to come because it has taken that first step. But Udi, now help me understand. So we were talking here now about what to expect. So in Israel, how are you sort of preparing for it? This is of course at a strategic level. I'm not asking you operational details here, but this is more as a strategic level. What kind of scenarios do you think emerging from Iran? Because I think we are all agreeing to the same thing that something big is going to come. It is way too much humiliation for a regime like Iran. It's also for the regime's survival. How does the regime survive? This is this embarrassment and humiliation.
Absolutely, and even more so, there are experts that are claiming something very logical, that giving the fact that this regime was based on ideology, which has many aspects, not only Israel, but they put Israel and the Jews and and Zionism in their focus. There is a big clock in Tehran which says Israel is doomed in this very moment or something like this. So this regime that was based on ideology must, justify its continuous control of the country by going on fighting. No question about it. So some people in Israel would say it was a very bad decision because this war is endless, and we should have tried to make a coalition of the Sunni, so to speak, moderate states, which is Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Jordan and the Emirates, etc. And through international pressure, let's say, combined with the Europeans, maybe the Indians, maybe I don't know, and of course the Americans, to push back Iran, and to. So this is one concept that I respect. I don't agree because exactly as we understand and we agree that if it's a regime based on ideology, they will always lie, and they will, the 2015 agreement that Obama was pushing forward is only for them to buy time. And when Biden was lowering down the sanctions, it allowed them to, to finance their terror industry all over the world. So there's no question about it that if it's a really ideological regime, they will not stop at nothing. Then now comes the other option. The other option is two options of the second option. The very, very optimistic one is that Israel has the capacity of going on destroying the war machine of Iran. Prime Minister Netanyahu said quite clear, and 100% of Israelis, all of Israelis are agree with this. We have nothing against the Iranian people. We know from social media that many Iranians adore Jews and adore Israel, and they would glad to have a nice meal here in Tel Aviv, etc. So the problems with the regime, it's not like in the Arab case, which is the real gap. There is conflict with the Arabs or with the Palestinians. Here it has nothing to do. So the optimistic view would say, yes, we do have the power to go on destroying the military machinery of this regime. And the less optimistic, which is my opinion, is that there's no way to destroy everything. It's not a 1945 and you have the American army on one side and the Russian army crushing the German regime to the dust and going conquering Berlin. And no, there's no way we're going together. So what will be the outcome? The attrition war will go as far as I see it. I don't have a crystal ball, but my speculation is that we're going to end this round with a relatively Israeli win, by points, not by knockout. And then the Iranians are going to, regroup, and as said before, they're going to attack Israeli targets elsewhere in the world. And again, so I compare it to the like my shaving. I have a very smooth skin right now because I shaved for this meeting of ours about an hour ago. But tomorrow I'm going to have again those little hairs, so I have to go. So I guess you understand. We have to go again and again and again, destroying not everything, but harming this military mission until a revolution will come will appear, because nothing stays forever, as the yeah. Okay, so this would be my take on
Yeah, I
this
understand. I mean,
question.
ultimately, I think what you're saying is that you keep trying till the time that either there is a regime change. I mean, I think this is perhaps what you're trying to say. But we have to talk about the regional actors now before we come to countries like India. Kabir, so the regional actors stand is quite interesting. Everybody has asked for de-escalation. Everybody has been neutral. In Jordan and Saudi Arabia, both were instrumental in also intercepting the Iranian drones flying over them when on their way to Israel, isn't it? So what kind of neutrality is that? And do you think that a weakened Iran is also in the larger interest of the stability of the region generally? Because everybody is quite fed up with this proxy, this network.
But it's very interesting because well, first and foremost, why the Jordanians or the Saudis would sort of intercept drones is because it's in their sovereign skies. So first and foremost, they have to protect their own sovereignty, state, and people. So they are in within their full rights, whether it's wherever that drone is coming from. If it's a illegitimate sorry, if it's a legitimate target, it's a target. They take it down. There's no. It's very simple on that front. But over the past many months or couple of years at least, there've been drastic changes in the Arab countries as well. They've moved on to sort of building their economies. They're much more interested in building their infrastructure. UAE is not a regional success story; it's a global success story, and they're not under any sort of any fog of thought that they're in a very secure environment. So they have to sort of protect the gains they've made over the past 10 to 15 years. UAE's already made those gains and benefited from it. Saudi Arabia is under a very, very delicate transition. Where both ideologically and economically, while we concentrate a lot on the ideological part, economically moving away from keeping oil as your central economic dividend is a very tricky business for a country like Saudi Arabia. So they don't want hindrances to come in and become obstacles for them to have success in these programs. And what they've done over the past, for example, why did the Saudis agree to normalize relations with Iran, brokered by the Chinese? The Chinese were very sort of by the way, on the side. They were there at the right place, the right time, and it was great messaging to Washington, if nothing else. They really didn't do much by themselves. But why did the Saudis do it is a very important question to ask, because the Saudis did not want to become a part where they were figuring it out that this is a larger Iran-Israel issue. Once they normalized with Iran, there were no attacks by the Houthis on their refineries, which was a critical issue that they had. They had realized when the attacks did happen on the refineries, the Americans didn't turn up, so they took matters in their own hands. And we have to remember that the Saudis were directly engaging the Houthis for the longest period of time. They were fighting in Yemen. I think they are looking for, oddly, a sense of neutrality in the region, where they define the conflict as now at this juncture as one that is largely between Israel and Iran, which are on ideology, on theology, and on strategy. And if there is a broader conflict between the two, they are spared direct involvement, which is why, just as a concluding point, which is why Tehran has made these threats that, if Israel directly attacks American bases in neighboring countries, which obviously are Arab countries, are fair game.
Okay, and before I just open that up and bring the United States, and of course the one thing that we need to know, and this is for Kabir, and then which is that what do you think? What do you make of this Iranian warning to American assets? Because America is moving warships back to the region, etc. So what do you make of this? Where do
I
you think
think
America is
it's
preparing for
it's,
it?
it's look, it's a warning coming from lack of options, in my opinion, right? Because the biggest airbase that the Americans have is in Qatar. Qatar is actually very close to Iranians, so there is no way that the Iranians are going to directly attack Qatar, unless, of course, and I mean, you can't completely always say no, but they will not, unless they're completely against the wall in some shape or form, which is not the probability is very low of that. But it's in the past also we've seen reports where Arab countries like the UAE have already made it clear to the Americans that if you are going to directly attack Iran in any shape or form, bases on our soil, your bases that you're using on our soil will not partake in that in that confrontation. So they're already very very th- from the Arab countries' point of view, they're trying very hard to portray themselves as neutral to these broader conflicts. That it's between Iran, Israel, and the US at this point of time. We just don't want to be collateral damage. I think that seems to be the larger view of things.
No, so I think one should make a difference between the things declared and the deeper interest. And there's no question that for the Sunni, I mentioned before, the Sunni and the Shiite conflict, which is 1300 years now, and there's no one that is an expert on the issue would deny its importance. So on the one hand, the Saudi regime would say we're not part of the conflict, blah blah, but there's no question that there is a convergence of interest between Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Jordan. So, given the nature of Middle East or West Asia politics, they must say what they say, but they will act as they act. Now, as for the American ship buildup, you can also understand it as part of preventing a even worse war, because when bringing more power to a region, it's easier for a president, that's this time Trump, to say what Biden said in October 7. Don't go beyond interchange of missiles. In the Iran shot 50 or 100 or 150 missiles, and tonight will be 50 more, and tomorrow 100 more, but it will be gone in a week or two. On the other hand, if they hit by mistake a U.S. Army base in Qatar or wherever, then we can go to God forbid third world war, because China would intervene, and you have Russia, and you have all these issues. So I guess that the American buildup in the area has the target of preventing a bigger war to erupt. This is my understanding of the situation.
And also, whenever we are talking anything about the Middle East, of course, the one parameter that we're always checking is the oil prices. And after Israel's attack on Iran, there's been a jump of 7%, the oil prices. Kabir, what do you think where this is going?
I
And
mean,
would that be effective?
that's always the nerve twitch that happens if anything happens in the Middle East. The oil prices always jump up, but there is that reality that if the conflict spirals, oil fields are usually one of the first targets to be set ablaze, because that really brings the world in, and we have seen that happen in the first Gulf War as well. One of the sort of defining images of the first Gulf War was basically oil fields on fire. That's always an option. Hence, we always see this twitch in oil prices. But as far as for the moment, we have not sort of heard any views from the Iranians that they will block the Strait of Hormuz, or we've not and from what I understand, I think capacity is not an issue. Production is not an issue as of yet. So I think the prices are basically twitches because of geopolitical realities of the day, but they won't last unless there's something major happening.
There's no question it's a life string for Iran to keep on selling oil. This is the way they're beyond ideology. They have to run an economy, and the Iranian economy is based on oil. So what can they do? They would try to,
Well,
as much
China
as they
was
can.
trying.
Yes, of
Yep.
course. No, I would have come to that. But very good. I mean, we are going to be discussing a little bit about India, of course, towards the end. But before, let me just bring in Russia, because for Russia, it's all bad news, isn't it? I mean, with Assad gone and Iran weakened, and this axis of proxies considerably, I would say, decapacitated. I mean, what is an what? How does it impact Russia's geopolitics in the Middle East and Russia's ambitions there? Kabir, would you want to take that?
I mean, Russia. Uh, I think we are discussing Russia here just because it has to be discussed, but Russia is bogged down with its own problems right now to bother too much about what's happening here. In as we said, as you said, even in Syria, so they've lost their footing for the time being, and I don't think they have the capacities or the bandwidth to regain those footings. So, in my opinion, not a major issue or player in the coming time, at least with regard to this problem.
I was asking this also because if you remember, we were also chatting about this fact that there were theories going the rounds that so Bibi Netanyahu had asked Putin to mediate, and I actually couldn't really find any collaborative evidence for that. But then, this is how I think we need to sort of also dispel these conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case.
Okay, all right, Udi. But you tell me before that, let's discuss China here a little bit. What do you think? I mean, we know that China did play a role in allowing Iran and helping Iran to develop its nuclear enrichment, and a lot of those technical help was also coming from China. But how does this entire thing play out in your opinion when you look at it from Chinese interests? I mean, sitting
Yeah,
in this,
so
yeah.
talking about the elephant in the room, this is the outmost elephant. So, in relation to the Israeli-Iran elephant, the Israeli-Iran elephant is a little cat, because this is the major thing that bothers the talking about geopolitics. This is geopolitics. It's the U.S. and China, and of course all the proxies I mentioned before, the Quad. And I'm talking with two Indians, and I have more connection with other experts based in India, and it's very interesting to see how things converge. On the one hand, people are talking about geopolitics, that mentioning the eve of First World War, no axis, big mess, interchange, converging interest, and on the one hand. On the other hand, no one wants to go to a third world war, and it's the biggest elephant in the room is, of course, what China intentions are in Taiwan. And from this point of view, going back to US, which is the right way to go back to Iran and Israel, for the US, a bigger conflict in the Middle East is a big problem, because they don't want to get their minds offset the main issue of Taiwan and China. Now, the question of China in long term, there's no question for me. There's no question that India will surpass China in, let's say, not more than 15 or 20 years in all aspects. I don't have to tell you, and I don't want to be heard like I'm trying to flatter you. I'm talking about basic facts. India is the biggest country with speaks with more than 300 million English speakers, and the high tech, and what Moody is doing, and the changes in India in the last 10 years, and the growth, etc. On the one hand, and on the other hand, they have problems in Pakistan and the relation with China. So India has to wait. I want India to make it tomorrow, but we have to wait 10 or 15 or 20 years. And in this time span, we have the ambition of China to be for the universe, or for the globe, what Iran wants to be in the Middle East, to be the main power. So this is like the convergence of China and Iran. So from this point of view, Israel is very, let's say, small in relation to the big problem.
Okay, all right. And so, Kabir, just the last question to you, which is that let's discuss the role of India a little bit, because, of course, you know that India has traditionally been balancing. Of course, we all know that. But I think there's also this reading that I have, which is that actually, frankly, India would prefer, not would push, but at least would prefer a denuclearized Iran. It just makes things simpler for us, isn't it? I mean, no sanctions, easier trade, etc. But how would you articulate that?
But I think India's made no bones about it by saying that it ideally would not want to see a nuclear Iran. But I think any nuclear country would not want to see another country get nuclearized. I think it's a very basic sort of tenet of how security paradigms work. But India is sort of in a unique position that it is close to the Israelis, of course, but it is also close to the Iranians. So we saw Prime Minister Netanyahu talk to Prime Minister Modi, and the Minister Jaishankar talking to his counterpart in Israel, sort of discussing the ongoing situations. But having said that, I think there are limitations to what India is interested in doing. And limitations for India as well in getting too deep into the region's issue. I think India's success in the region depends on the very fact that it has actually been fairly non-interventionist in any of their regional confrontations, and India would like to preserve that by all means. We have to remember, yes, we are close to the Israelis, yes, we are close to the Iranians, but our business is reliant on the Arab economies. So we can't discount the fact that how many people live there first, 7 to 8 million Indians work there, and the fact that we have tens of billions of dollars investments coming
Remittances.
up
Yeah,
and
and
down.
also remittances. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So it's the multiple reasons why India would not get too deep into this dynamic in the Middle East.
Well, on that note, I have to thank the both of you for taking, the time out and also keeping, a tab on a very fast evolving geopolitical situation, which is of, I think, immense concern to everybody. And of course, from India's perspective as well, because one thing that we did not really have the bandwidth to discuss here was how important Israel has become for India's defense industry cooperation and diversification. Which is very true that, from sitting here in New Delhi, we would like this to not escalate and we would try to not get involved too much because we have extremely important ties with multiple actors in the region. But on that note, thank you for taking the time out for WorldView with Swasti, and we'll be back with a fresh new episode, so stay tuned.